Afternoon, welcome to Iyun with Benzion. Today's daf is Kesubos Chaf Hey number 25. The Gemara has been dealing with a question since Chaf Daled, daf Chaf Daled number 24, about whether a malam in a seal's kapayim liyuchsin, and for that matter, whether a malam in truma liyuchsin. Also, if someone's eating truma del raisa or gets truma del raisa in the granos in the threshing house, do we assume he's a Kohen? That Kohen in this at the highest level of Kuna is not so much that he's the Kedushas Kohen, it just means that he's not a mamzer in the sin, like Rashi explained. Because that's really what we're worried about. If he's someone of a shady background, we don't know he's a mamzer in a sin, he can cause his child to become a mamzer. How do we allow him to marry a Bas Yisrael? Based on we're very careful about Yuchsin. How do we know? So in his kapayim, he dukkins in front of the shul, so we assume he's a Kohen. If Kedushas Kuna, obviously he's not a mamzer in a sin. If he's a mamzer, he doesn't have Kedushas Kuna, right? We say you lose Kedushas Kuna, Kedushas Leviyah, Kedushas Yisrael, whether you're a mamzer in a sin. So the Gemara finally tries to bring a proof. On the top of Chav Hama Beis, Tamar says, Tashma, Chazaka Lakuna, Siyas Kapayim, Mechilak Garnas, Edus. 3 ways of establishing Chazaka that he's a Kohen, which presumably means for all the aspects of Kuna, including genealogy, that we assume that he's not a mamzer in a sin. Siyas Kapayim, Mechilak Garnas, and Edus. The Gemara says Edus. What do you mean Edus? Edus is Edus. It's not a Chazaka. Chazaka is an assumption. Edus is a proof. Right? So the Gemara answers, the Gemara finally answers, it's talking about Edus Haba Mikol Chazaka. Now, what is the Gemara really saying over here? So Rashi says we'll give him truma. Doesn't say anything about yuchsin over here. Assuming according to Rashi we don't malam liyuchsin. That's the way the Art Scroll learns, that Rashi is not saying malam truma liyuchsin. But I want to say that's not true. The Gemara brings a case. The case is Kriyas HaTorah. The Gemara hasn't discussed this yet. Kriyas HaTorah. We see him in Shulga Kohen, and obviously he's really a Kohen because it's not an Adam Gadol because a Levi read Acharav. So we know for sure he's a Kohen. So that is good enough to establish him. That's a chazaka assumption, like I mentioned in Iyun and Benzion and Daf Chav Daled. An assumption is good enough for yuchsin, right? We're just trying to figure out whether it's a suffix or it's actually a chazaka. It's a good assumption. It's a good assumption. It's good enough in order to let him marry. It's not something which you need dinim mominus. It's not davar sheb'erva over here, right? We're talking about genealogy. Yuchsin, that's not, according to most postsmen, it's probably not. It's not davar sheb'erva. So you don't need edus. You don't need edus. That's what the Gemara says. That you don't need edus. Edus chazaka, meaning people saw a chazaka, and the Gemara's chiddush, I think, bringing it from Beis HaKnesses over here, is to show that Kriyas HaTorah, right? Kriyas HaTorah is only given to people who have Kedushas Kuna, Kedushas Leviyah, and Kedushas Yisrael, which means they're not Mamzerim and not Nesinim. Now, obviously, it's a chazak, it's an assumption, right? The shul, the Gabbai, whoever gave him the Aliyah, is assuming he's a Kohen, assuming he's Levi Yisrael. We assume the fact that he got Kohen, he's willing to go in front of the congregation and read the Kohen as the Kohen Aliyah, and people, and not afraid. People are going to say, hey, Mamzer over there. Right, we know your background, or we know you have a shady background. That's good enough. That's a chazaka. So the Gemara has proven over here, I believe, that Kriyas HaTorah malam liyuchsin. So let's go back to the brisa. So therefore, edus haba mikol chazaka means what? Chazaka lakuna nesiyas kapayim chilak granas ve'edus. Edus is talking about Kriyas HaTorah. So now all the 3 things in the brisa are all the same thing. So now just like edus of chazaka, Kriyas HaTorah, which is what the Gemara says the brisa is referring to. So Nesiyas Kapayim and Chilak Gran is getting Truma Midol Raisa. So those 2 things would be Mala, Truma Liyos. Now we have Mala, Nesiyas Kapayim Liyos. And that should be the correct maskana of the Gemara. Further proof to this is the Gemara in Chav Ham and Aleph on the bottom. The Gemara concludes, this is the way we paskin nowadays, that Chala Bisman says they're Abanan, because it says B'wachem, right? Chala, you only Chayiv and Chala Midol Raisa, once Rov of Klal Yisrael lives in Eretz Yisrael. That's not true nowadays. That's why Chala is not Doraisa nowadays. It's only the Rabbanan nowadays. Truma B'zanazah, it's a machlokas whether it's Doraisa or the Rabbanan nowadays. But assuming that Chala is the Rabbanan, so we have another brisa on the middle of Chavim and Aleph. Tashba Chazaka Kuna Nesias Kapayim Mechila Granas Be'eretz Yisrael. So Chazaka to establish as a Kohen, which means to establish as a Kohen for all intents and purposes for Yuchsin also. Nesiyas Kapayim Mechila Granas Be'eretz Yisrael. Mechila Granas over Surah. So what does it mean? Kasani Mias, the Brayz says, Nesiyas Kapayim, my love liyuchsin. Doesn't it mean liyuchsin? Lo lechala. It's talking about, no, we're malim lechala. Hadumi lechila granas, Kasani, ma chila granas liyuchsin. I was talking about liyuchsin. Lo chila granas gufa lechala. Kazar Shmuel says, Darabanan v'chala da raisa. The way to interpret this Brayz, to get out of it, to show it's not a proof that we're malim Nesiyas Kapayim liyuchsin, is to say that Chila Granos is Truma Manazeh, which is the Rabbana, according to this Braysa, and Ramalin v'chol Machala Dal Reisa. But we know that challah is not the oraisa. The halacha, challah is not the oraisa. So once we go back lahilchasa, we have to go back to this brisa and fix it up, right? So now we have to read the brisa again, and presumably we hold like this brisa halacha. So you can no longer have the answer. Chila granos is a raya to get challah. So what is chila granos a raya to? Getting truma is a raya for yuchsin. And if that's a raya for yuchsin, go back to siyas kapayim. Siyas kapayim is also a raya for yuchsin. And I think it's very clear. I'll leave with the hilchasa. The way we hold nowadays, challah b'zman said is not deoraisa until you have rov of Eretz Yisrael being filled, rov of the Jews living in Eretz Yisrael. So therefore, the conclusion is very simple that Nesiyas Kapayim, Trumo D'Oraisa, and Kriyas HaTorah, Beis HaKnesses are all good enough assumptions to assume he's a Kohen, and we're Malahim Liyuchsin, and we're not concerned that he's a mamzer and a sin. These are assumptions, like I mentioned. It's not proof, but assumption is good enough for Yuchsin. That's all I have to say for you today. See you in Mishnah Yomi coming up next.